Jay this all the time.
Recording in progress.
I tell Jay this all the time. I am comfortable. I'm comfortable with my opinions to the point where if you give me new information, or as I get older, I look at things in a different way, you can change my mind, right? I've said to you before, I had Shaq leaps and bounds ahead of Olajuwon. And then as I dove deeper and learned more and watched more, I was like, hold on a minute. Other than that eye test of that physical dominance, what did he actually do better? And it was like, and they just start to get closer and closer and closer.
Wait a minute. This ain't as far as you think it is.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? It's if someone were to have one over the other, to steal a line from Jay, I'm like, that's not ridiculous. Like, it's not ridiculous to say that. That's all I'm just saying is be open to new information. And I guarantee you, we all listen. I'm not gonna tell anybody how old Haley is, but like, I know you're younger than me and Jay. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like, every 10 years, there's like a shift in me. Yeah. So like at 20, at 30, at 40, it's just like, oh, and I start to look at the world a little bit differently. And then I go back and go, well, hold on. I said this like it was at 30. I was like, there's no way you're going to change my mind. Like, there's no way you're going to change my mind. And then I was like, oh, I changed my own mind. And it's like, oh, I just got to do this kind of circle.
It happens to the best of us, Tone. No doubt about it. I told you, man, at 50 years old, I wish you would try to tell me that Elgin Baylor was better than Dominique Wilkins. Get the hell out of here. You must be out of your mind. But then I started doing some homework. I'm like, wait a minute. This dude was super nice. It's not as far apart as I think it is. In fact, he might be better than him, as a matter of fact. So you don't have to. One of the things that I found out about doing this, Tone, is you have to be open-minded. When you say something, and it's not just nuts, but when you say something and you're not sure about it, you can walk it back. Now, if you have something where you got definitive information, you can stand on it. I stand on this, absolutely. But if you say something that's super wild, Magic a better defender than Kobe, I'm going to give you an opportunity to walk that back. I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about that for a second before you keep going.
For those watching, before we came on to the live, we were talking about a player's choice conversation that they were having about one of the guests had said Magic was a better defender. I can't even say it with a straight face, was a better defender than Kobe. So that's how this all got started. But we should probably jump into what we're supposed to be doing. Haley, what do you think?
Oh, we have a lot for you guys this morning. Just make sure to let us know in the chat. Sound's working. If anything goes wrong, let us know, because technical difficulties are bound to happen at points. But yeah, I mean, I guess to start off, we had a mail drop question. I'm not sure what it was from. Was it from a couple weeks ago?
Our old platform, we had opened up a mail drop so people could ask us questions, because look, we're about sport. Mostly basketball, some NFL, but we're also about life. So we would get questions like relationship advice, health advice. Everybody wants to know Jay's vegan diet, those types of things. And so this was the last mail drop question. And I thought, hey, we're not really doing mail drop anymore because we've got super chat, but let's give them the last mail drop question, because I think it's a good one.
Yeah, it definitely is. So the question was, most embarrassing thing to happen on the court. Boom.
Well, for me, and Tone knows this guy. He's my best friend. I've known him since I was in the 5th grade. His name's Roderick Rhodes. I was in the 8th grade, and I was in the 9th grade. I'm sorry. I was in the 9th grade. I was a freshman in high school. He was in the 8th grade, and I was considered one of the better players in my class in the city. And we ended up, my 9th grade team in high school played his 8th grade team. And we played them at my high school. And when I tell you that he absolutely destroyed me, I fouled out of the game. Not only did I foul out of the game, I went into the stands and I was in tears. He dunked on me. In the 8th grade, he dunked on me. I fouled out of the game. And I, at that particular point, knew I got to get better. Because I don't know if I'm that, I don't think I'm that good, but that can't happen again. I'm not saying that I can't get outplayed again, but that cannot happen again. Yeah. I got completely destroyed. And it was the most embarrassing thing that had ever happened to me. Very rarely do I cry on the court. I was in tears, Tone, because I had never gotten off that bad, ever. Even to this day.
Was it just his pure game that embarrassed you, or did he give you any kind of looks or like that personal relationship
was he talking
where you're
smack
like, this
to
is
you?
worse?
Rod is not a smack talker. That's not who Rod Rhodes is. Rod is not a dude who talks smack. In fact, Rod is the guy who just plays. But
silent
he
assassin.
That's who he is. And when I tell you that, he was just giving it to me, and I couldn't do anything about it. I'm talking like 3 or 4 straight trips where he came down and scored on me, and I fouled him. And this was early in the game. This wasn't even throughout. I think I fouled out in like the 3rd quarter. I was done. I fouled out the game in like the 3rd quarter, and like he ran by me one time, and I was able to catch up to him, and he just straight threw it right over the top of me. He's in the 8th grade, by the way. He's not in 19th. He's not. I'm in high school, and he just dumped it right over the top of me. And I'm in school the next day, and I gotta explain myself. And you let an 8th grader dog you, and what can I say to that? I can't say nothing to that because they were all there and they saw it. So it was the most, even to this day, and I've been outplayed by guys, but I've never been destroyed like that ever.
Well, I'll tell you off the court. JM Simple in the chat is embarrassing because I thought the Mavs had a chance, and he swore up and down that the Warriors were going to wash the Mavs. So we'll get to that in a minute. On the court, oddly enough, my story includes Roderick Rhodes as well, which we did not, for those who are watching, like we did not talk about this. It's just interesting that so I was at the University of Kentucky, and the Roderick Rhodes and Tony Delk were the coach / players on my team. So every 2 players from UK, and then some high school players, and then we had and then 1 NBA player on each team. That's how they separated it up. So like guys like Rex Chapman and those guys, right? And so my team had Roderick Rhodes and Tony Delk. And so we're down by 1 point, and we have to foul, put them on the line, right? So we have a chance to win the game. Like we were playing a real game. At the time, Coach Rick Pitino is up in the stands just kind of watching us, right? And so we're all trying to impress him because there's also other scouts and stuff around. And I was telling you before we went live, like I didn't really take basketball seriously until kind of my senior year, really, in high school.
Yeah. So
we're playing shirts and skins, and it's very important because it's a very important part of the story. So they inbound the ball. I'm not going to tell you, I don't even remember the person's name. I'll remember his last name, and you'll understand why I remember his last name in a second. He catches the ball and turns. And I don't know if it's just because I have really long arms or if the way that he turned away from me, but I slap him so hard, like right here, just below his shoulder blade on his back. When I tell you I slapped him so hard, it echoed in the stadium. Okay. And you saw my handprint, and I got pretty big hands. Like I could have been a quarterback, right? Bam. Right on his back. You could see every finger outlined on his back. He goes down in a heap. And at this point, you're wondering, well, why is this embarrassing, right? Well, here's the thing. So he goes down in a heap, laying down in tears, flat on his stomach. I look up, I see Rick Pitino shake his head and turn and walk away, like down, like he was standing like where the entrance is, like into where the stands are. And he walked out. Roderick Rhodes and Tony Delk also both turned their back on me and don't look at me. Oh yeah, that was Rick Pitino's son. And I'm like, I guess I'm not going to the University of Kentucky.
Oh no.
And like everyone just turned away and was like, and I had no idea, and I don't even know what to do because I hit him. If I tell you, so hard, there was no reason for me to do that hard. I didn't, in the heat of the moment. I was just like, I was so embarrassed. And then good for him. Like, 5 minutes later, he gets up and he's like, I'm never going skins again. I'm like, at least he had a good sense of humor about it. But man, oh man, that was just like, I couldn't, like, I'm stumbling to say it because I was just like, even now I feel like I wish I could find him and apologize still. It's been 30 years and I still feel bad. So anyways, I think he still has my handprint. He might have tattooed it. It might be tattooed on his back. It's like, when you get branded, I think he's got that brand. So
how did that affect your future relationship with schools?
Yeah, well, let's just say, it took a while. Tony Delk didn't even talk. Tony Delk and I didn't reconnect for about 10 years after that.
Yeah, makes sense. Oh,
Yo.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Oh man, yeah, that was
okay.
crazy.
So, should we move on into playoffs? Discussing playoffs. Let's start with I mean the Dubs and Mavs are wrapping it up tonight, possibly, or it could go another few games. So we shall see. But tell me a little bit about, Luka has been incredible. Despite what's happened with his whole team, he has been incredible as an individual. What is it going to take for him moving forward to win those championships, to get a team together that can actually meet that mark? And then on the Warriors side, of course, depending on who they meet, whether it's the Heat or the Celtics, how do you see that matchup going as well? Jay, if you want to go ahead and give us your thoughts, I'm interested.
Well, it's obvious that it's not going to work the way Luka's been doing it. They're 2-6 when he's averaging 40 a game, so they're not winning. So that's the first problem, and he needs his other guys to perform, and they haven't been. And there is no reason for me to think coming into the series that the Warriors would completely just mop the floor with these dudes. I did not see that, especially considering what they had just done to Phoenix, blowing them out in game 6 and then going onto their home floor and blowing them out again in game 7. So these guys, and then they come into Golden State in game 2 and they got them 19 in a hole. So I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a series, only except Luka's guys haven't performed. Those guys, Bullock, Finney-Smith, Kleber, they're D3 guys, and a lot of their offense is predicated on Luka creating offense for them. So when he creates offense for them, he gets them open looks. They have to convert. Well, they haven't been, and that's the reason why things haven't been going well. Add that to the fact that they got to defend. They got to defend Poole. They got to defend Steph. They got to defend Clay, and they've actually been doing a pretty good job. They haven't been terrible. They've been doing a pretty good job, but because their offense has suffered, they've just been completely and utterly ineffective, and it hasn't worked. And I think that I'm going to get a better effort from them tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors ended it. I would not be surprised if the Warriors ended it.
So it's interesting. One, I want to say this because a bunch of people have been throwing out this. It's probably going to be a gentleman's sweep. Can we get that out of our vocabulary? Because I hate that. Why
don't you like it, Tom? What's the problem with gentleman's sweep?
No, you either sweep or you don't. No, you sweep or you don't. And if you're going to use the term, which I don't like, if they win game 1 and then you win 4 in a row, the sweep has to be 4 in a row. That's it. So if they win the first game, like Jordan, if you want to say there was a gentleman's sweep against the Lakers in '91, right? Lakers win the first game, then the Bulls win the next 4. I still don't like it, but I'll accept. But if you go up 3-1 and then they win 1 and then you win 1, no, I don't like that term. But anyways,
Toronto and Milwaukee, would that be a sweep?
No, that was 6 games. That was 6
games. They beat them the next 4 games though.
Did the Mavericks gentlemen sweep Miami? Because wasn't Miami up 2-0 in 2011?
No, he wasn't up 2-0. They was up 2-1 at one point.
Oh, 2-1. All right, fair enough.
They were
all
up
right.
2-1.
No, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you win 4 in a row, great. I don't know. Whatever. That's stupid. But let's move
on. Leave it out. We won't use that term.
I'm gonna. Okay. Yeah. I don't like it. So here's the thing. I said to you about 8,000 times, I don't like the Mavs roster. They're not doing Luka any favors. They're putting him in a position to fail. You even said they're probably not even making it out of the first round.
I thought they did. I didn't think.
And they shouldn't have. Let's be honest. If you look at that roster, now, I'm not knocking second-round picks because our 2-time defending MVP is a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the exception to the rule. So, if you look at their roster, their core, aside from Luka, the highest picked player is Brunson, who was 33rd. So you got a 33rd, a 36th, a 38th, a 43rd, and 2 undrafted players who are playing significant roles on this team.
Right.
You're not going to win a championship. I've yet to see a team with all one superstar and all second round or undrafted players win it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone will find one in the 75 years. I don't think you are. So the roster is not built to win. Here's why I'm mad at Luka and the Mavs. Because they did win the first round. They did take care of the Suns. And I started to believe. I started to believe. I said,
"You on the hook, Tom? Are you on the hook?"
Cinderella. The only problem is with Cinderella, it eventually, the clock strikes midnight.
Yeah, it does.
And all the stars turn back into little mice, and the carriage turns back into a pumpkin, and that's what happened, I think, against the Warriors. So I think, listen, they need to upgrade their roster clearly in the offseason, obviously. If I'm the rest of the NBA, I'm really worried about the Warriors, because not only do they now look like the favorites, regardless whether they play Boston or Miami, we'll talk about those two teams in a second. If they look like the team to beat this year, but also next year, because Steph and Clay, I know they're getting older, but you've got Jordan Poole. Looney looks like he's going to be a star. Andrew Wiggins is starting to play to his potential. You're going to add Wiseman back next season. This team just gets deeper and better. And so it's like, okay, now, and we've seen Curry and Clay, they're very willing to kind of step back and be the veteran leaders, right? When KD stepped onto the floor, they both took a back seat. Jordan Poole, when he's hot, what do we see? They take a step back and say, take it, young fella, right? But if they have to, they can also step up their game and be the leaders. So now I'm looking at a team that's going to have, assuming everyone gets re-signed or whatever, they're going to have Steph, Clay, Draymond, the core, as the vets, but adding in Poole, Looney, Wiggins, Wiseman, and I always forget Kuminga. Like they're good. They have such a good young core too. Like this is probably, they should be in the title conversation now for 2, 3, maybe 4 years moving forward. That's scary because we've seen what they can do. When they're front runners, man, they're the best front runners I've ever seen. So listen, if I'm the rest of the NBA, I'm on notice to be like, hey, we need to figure something out, because we can't let these guys go on another, 3 rings in 5 year type of, or 3 and 4 years, whatever it was. We can't let them do this again. Five finals in 5 years.
Here's the thing, though, Tony, and you love talking about this, and you know how much I hate talking about it. You brought this up to me months ago when the Portland Trailblazers and the Clippers ended up making a trade for Covington. And what did they do with that trade, Tone? How much money did they open up? I think you told me it was like $60 million.
It was. Yes, because he was, I think one of them was on expiring, and they got rid of Norman Powell's big deal that he just signed. Yeah. Right.
So now what we have here is now we got to talk about the business of basketball. And if you don't understand the business of basketball, you can't understand the game of basketball. So with that being said, Wiggins' contract is coming up soon. We got to pay Gary Payton, right? Not only do we have to pay Gary Payton, what's the price tag for Jordan Poole? Now, we already know that Clay is on the books. We know that Steph is on the books. And we know that Drake comes off the books in 2 years. So in order to keep Wiggins, that means that they go $100 million in luxury tax. Tone, I don't know if we could keep that up, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we could keep that up. Now, we still got Poole on his Rook deal. We still got Kuminga on his Rook deal. We still got Wiseman on his Rook deal. Okay, so we got some time with those guys. But the core guys, who are the guys who've gotten us to the championship, that's where the problem is going to be. And are we going to be able to hold on to Wiggins? Is he going to be too expensive for us? And this is a year-to-year thing, Tone. This isn't something where we could look 5 years down the line and go, yo, we might be able to build a dynasty. No, because we got a year-to-year thing here. How much is Gary Payton going to cost us? How much is Poole going to cost us in a year? And again, Tone, you love talking about this. I hate having this conversation because but I know how necessary it is. Also, Tone, I know how necessary it is.
I love talking money. I love talking
love
money.
it. You absolutely. Just so you guys know, this is Tone's thing. He loves talking about the business of basketball and salary caps, and I hate it, but I understand it, and I know it's necessary, and we have to talk about it. So when I look at this Warrior team, I think that they're taking advantage of a great opportunity right now, because we might see a different unit next year. Because things get expensive, Tone, and they get expensive fast.
Yeah, but I think they also benefited, right? Because they got Steph on the cheap, right? Because of ankle injuries, all that kind of stuff. So maybe they're looking at it holistically and saying, hey, we had a lot of success. We made a lot of money when we had these guys on the cheap. I don't think they're afraid to go into the luxury tax. And now that they've moved, and I love Oakland. Listen, I tell everybody I live just outside of Oakland. I loved my time there. But like now they're on the other side of the bridge. They're on the, the good side. I think, and they're making money. They've got the TV deals. They got the new stadium. Like they got all this stuff. Are they afraid? I think, look, if I'm running the business, look, I got to have my checks and balances, but at the same time, I know how short a run can be. So I'm going to take advantage, and I'm thinking, hey, we can go on another one of these runs, make our money, and then you can live off that when when they start to, when Steph is gone, when Clay is gone. Because let's be honest, what's Clay, 32? Steph's probably up around there as well. Like they only got
34.
Like they only have this. That's what I'm saying. This 2 to 3 year window where I'm going into the cap as far as I can.
Yeah,
and then
take advantage while you can.
Yeah. So if I can win 2 out of the next 3, and then I'm like, okay, now let's start, moving on from those guys. So I if I'm them, I take advantage because I know, everybody thinks. I always use Dan Marino as the example, right? Is like people think, oh, he got to the Super Bowl, I think, as a rookie, right?
Second
year, and they were like, oh man, he's gonna be back again. Never made it back again. Never. You know what I mean? So you got to take advantage of your window.
Now I will tell you this, Tone. I'm sorry, Haley. I will tell you this, Tone.
Go.
I do look at what the Warriors have done and how they got to the NBA Finals. So we'll talk about a Denver team that was undermanned. And I hate to talk about that too. You play who's in front of you, but they end up going up against a Denver team that was undermanned, and then they move on to a young team in Memphis who also lost Ja, and now they're playing against a Warrior team. I'm sorry, they're playing against a Dallas team who, like you just said, Tone, they got one first round pick. So the road to the NBA Finals for the Warriors hasn't been nearly as difficult as it's been for other teams. However, they are taking advantage of that right now.
Listen, play who's in front of you.
That's it. That's all. That's all you can do. Play who's in front of you. But with that being said, I think that they take advantage of this now because I think that we're going to be looking at a different unit next year. I think the Western Conference is going to get better next year. And I can't say with 100% certainty that the Warriors are going to be back because, again, we're talking about a team that, remember, Tone, Steph, Clay, and Dre, they've been together longer than Kobe and Shaq, Jordan and Pippen, Magic, James Worthy, and Jabbar. They've been together longer than all of them dudes. So how much longer can we keep this group together and get what we're getting from these guys?
Fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the rapport that those three have is different than anybody in NBA history. Like nobody's ever done that. So that, along with, we were just talking about this yesterday, like the Warriors are special pick. And you can, like Bob has several interviews on this of how they pick their players. And it's these guys who are willing to take pay cuts, who are unselfish. I mean, it shows in their game on how they're willing to pass. They're willing to find that best open shot and give it to their fellow teammate. And that's how they work internally and externally. And so that's really special. And I think that alone can definitely carry them these next few years. And I think that that's going to translate into these younger guys who might know, like Jordan, I know that I can make more money somewhere else, but I want to learn from Steph. I want to take in everything I can because he's going to pass the torch to me. So anyways, we'll see what happens there. I do want to backtrack kind of back to Luka and the Mavs. Question A, was that Porzingis trade a smart move? And B, obviously they are going to have to make changes next year. Like you said, whether it's I think they need to keep players like Brunson, obviously probably, I don't know. There's multiple of them that I like. Kleber, I
disagree.
Bullock. Okay, go.
I disagree. I think
get rid of them all.
No, not get rid of them all. But like, first, let me go back a step to the Warriors and say, I think the fact that Steph and Clay and Draymond weren't highly regarded when they came in, they weren't considered to be superstars. So I think that made them more humble, and I think that's why they get along so well. In terms of the Mavs, why I say I disagree is, I like Brunson and those others, but at this point, you have Luka. That's the only untouchable, right? If someone says we're going to improve your roster, but you have to give up Brunson to do it, well, you do it, right? Whoever, like Kleber, whatever, whoever's on that team. None of them are untouchable if it makes your roster better, right? Because some of those moves, like people always think when they see trades, they're like, oh, no one would trade this player for that player because this player is so much better. It has almost nothing to do with it. It has to do with money. It has to do with contracts. Hey, I think I'm going to lose this player because he's on an expiring. I'm going to trade him and I'm going to get less. Like look at how many trades go through and you're like, oh, these guys got robbed. Well, part of it, maybe from a talent perspective, they got robbed. But when you look at the dollars, the cents, all these things, you could go through a million trades and be like, the talent level doesn't match. Well, it never matches because money is involved, contracts. a player just says, I want out. And now it's like, okay, I'm just going to take the best. It's almost, and when I say the best deal, it's not necessarily the best deal, because there are times when we know there are good deals that they say no to. It's, I want the best deal for my team that doesn't put my player in my division, in my conference, right? Where I have to play them. Like, you put all those, sometimes you ask the player, hey, where do you want to go? Right. And so you try to make it work for them. Like, all those things are factors into it. So I think while they'd like to keep, Brunson and others because they're great role players, hey, if it makes your team better, you move on. You just listen. No one in Toronto wanted to move on from DeMar DeRozan, but you had to move on to get Kawhi, right? Those are the things it's tough, but you have to do it.
Well, with that also being said, when Dinwiddie was traded to Dallas, the first thing I was thinking was, what? How is this going to work? Because the first thing I'm thinking is he's a primary ball handler. He was a primary ball handler in Brooklyn. He's a primary ball handler in Washington. So now he's going to come to Dallas, and he was a starter too, by the way. So now he's going to come to Dallas, and what does he bring them? Well, what he brings them is he brings them a lot of energy from their second unit. He brings them production. He brings them points. Initially, I didn't think this thing was going to work, but this actually has been working. So I think he's a good piece to hold on to him. But the question that I have when I look around the league is, what $30 million, what all-star, what all-NBA guy whose track is up or who's in a precarious situation is looking at Luka and going, I think that I could help him. I want to go to Dallas. I think that I could help them down there, because there are guys who've in the past, Mark Jackson said it when the Indiana Pacers were playing against the Knicks in the playoffs and they lost in Game 7. Mark Jackson was playing with the Clippers and he's looking at the Indiana Pacers going, man, I think I could help that team get over the top. So is there a guy that's in the NBA right now who's a star, maybe even a superstar, that's looking at Luka going, man, I could help him? Because I'm thinking, Tone, about a scorer. I'm not thinking about
right.
I'm thinking about a guy who's buckets. I'm not thinking about a guy who needs the basketball in terms of having to pound it like Luka. I'm thinking about a guy who Luka can go to and get a bucket, like a Carmelo Anthony type of guy. That guy isn't around. I don't think he's around anymore.
I think like a Beal, Zach LaVine. Hey, if the Warriors,
in the chat, people are saying Zach.
Are they saying Zach in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, and I agree.
Hey, if the Warriors want to cut some salary, maybe a Clay, like a catch and shoot kind of guy. Like there's guys, but I think for me, I think Beal and if the chat's saying Levine, good for you guys. I think Levine, those are two guys that are they're buckets. And I think they are saying to themselves, I can help Luka. And Luka's saying, I would love to have a guy like that I can pass it to and know, hey, I can take a break. They're gonna drop 30, when I just want to go for 20, or can only go for 20 because they're blitzing me. So yeah, I think those guys will be.
Add that to the fact, Tone, what you just said. Last I checked, Dallas is not Oklahoma City. Dallas is not Minnesota. Right?
No, Dallas is like the fourth or fifth biggest city in the country. They're a big market. Yeah.
Add that to the fact, everything that you just said, what we just got finished talking about, Tone, what you love to talk about.
The money makes sense.
And guess what Dallas has a lot of right now?
That's right. I would trade that entire trade that entire roster for Zach LaVine and Rudy Gobert. And I'd figure out the other 12. There's nobody that's off limits on that roster. You call me up. Do not call me up asking about Luka, because we already know Luka is off limits. But you call me up. Anybody else that you're interested in, we can have a conversation. Absolutely. Yep. Plus, you want to go to Dallas. There's no, Dallas, Florida, no state tax. Keep your money in your pocket.
Nice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, moving on, I do want to talk a little bit about the East.
Haley, keep us moving because we got to get to the Jordan versus LeBron thing.
We can't skip that another week.
We're not skipping that. We're doing that today no matter what.
Let's cover a little bit of the East. Just give me your quick thoughts. We probably all saw the game yesterday. It was not pretty. Most of the games haven't been pretty in the series. They've been kind of back and forth. So as Miami goes back, or as they both go back to Miami tomorrow night to kind of change that evened up tie right now, what do you see happening and what can change? I mean, all these injuries are in the mix as well. So who do you see eventually coming out on top at the end of the series?
So the thing for me is, and I heard this stat this morning as I was driving. I didn't realize it, but the Boston Celtics, who I think we all picked to come out of the East, have won 14 out of the 16 quarters played, which I just think is the fact that the series is 2-2, and if that's true, Jay Will said it. So I'll think he has people checking his stats. So I'm going to agree. I'll say,
yes,
okay.
He does.
So in terms of the series, although it's 2-2, and although, Boston had to win this game to tie it up, I still feel like Boston is kind of in command of this series, because now you got to hurt Kyle Lowry, you got to hurt Butler, Tyler Hero is out. Like, there's so many issues, starting to plague Miami. And, I said this to Jay yesterday. We do our Monday at 8 p.m. We did our pregame on TikTok Live. And what did I say? I said, if Boston's going to win this series, I need to see it in quarter 1 of game 4. They need to come out and take a lead on Miami, just punch them in the face and say, we're not going down. Like, we had Butler out and we didn't take advantage of it last game. We're going to show you what we're made of. And they did. Like, that game was over, I feel like, in the first quarter.
They did. And
so I think Boston did the right thing. They came back. They responded from a poor performance. They got incredible play from, I forget the guy's name, the guy who started in place of Marcus Smart. I think he outscored the Miami starters in the first half by himself. Yes, White, which is just insane. I feel good about my Boston Celtics pick. And I think Miami, listen, I'm worried about Miami moving forward, not just in this series, but after this year.
Well, I look at when a lot of people tell me about teams being underrated or a guy being underrated. And the reason why they say that is because they're inconsistent. Because the stuff that they show you that makes you believe that they can do this, they don't show it to you all the time. So that's what happens when you watch Jason Tatum. That's why when I tell people I think Jason Tatum is going to be the best player in the game in the next year or 2 years, people scrunch their face up at me, because you'll see him go like last night where he was really sharp early, but then you saw him in game 3 where, he had 4 points and 4 rebounds in the second half, and he didn't give you anything, right? So the commitment is there on the defensive side of the ball. They're so much better when Robert Williams is in the lineup, because they're so much more aggressive defensively. They got the rim protector. They got the best rebounder. He's obviously hobbled, right? But he gives them that toughness that they don't have when he's out of the lineup. And then you got your other dirty work guy in Harford. So you can match that. Whenever you can match dirty work for dirty work, like what Miami has, because you just mentioned it yourself, Tone, about what Dallas has. Dallas got a bunch of second-round guys. Well, the same thing's going on with Miami. They got a bunch of dirty work guys, right? So when we get to match your dirty work, plus we're better offensively and we're more talented offensively, well, that's a recipe for success. And I still picked Boston to win the series, and I'm standing on that.
Yeah, I think the thing with Boston, and look, this isn't a hot take. When Marcus Smart and Williams are in the lineup, they do all those nasty things that allow Jaylen Brown and Tatum to be themselves, just to score, to be like these, superstar players. So, when they're not in the lineup, well, now they got to chip in on that other stuff, and it takes away from your game. Like, I hate it. I won't lie. I didn't like diving on the floor. I didn't like diving into the stands for a loose ball. I loved having guys on my team that would do that. Like, I just want to spot up. You hit me, I'll shoot. I'm happy. Like, that makes me very happy inside.
I don't work in that department. That is
listen, I don't work in that department, but if I got to, like, I'll go in and I'll deal with it, but I'd rather not.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony.
Well, I do want to, you guys in the chat, let us know kind of your predictions, both for tonight and tomorrow, and, what you see happening, because honestly, Warriors could wrap it up tonight, or it could go to a 6 or 7. You never know. I know it's too early to get going, but then I think the finals are going to be crazy this year. So, but moving on, I know it's early, but we're going to get, for me, it's early, but we're going to get into the GOAT debate. So I think I have an inclination of where you both stand. But I'm curious, because I know this one can get ugly. So, Tony,
we don't get ugly. We don't get ugly. We don't
get
get
ugly
ugly
in the chat.
They might get ugly in the chat. We don't get ugly, because listen. I always tell everybody, when you're looking at who's the greatest of all time, it's the same names that typically come up for most, right? It's Jordan, LeBron, Kareem. You get the occasional, Kobe, Magic, Wilt, Russell. Like you get, but I feel like 90% of people have 2 people, and then you got 5-10% that say a bunch of other names based on what they put into their criteria.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to start, because in order to have this debate, we have to have some stipulations, like what makes the greatest player of all time, versus whether it's accolades, it's longevity, there's a multitude of things it can come down to. And I think for different people, it means different things. There's a difference between being, good and great. There's so many things we can discuss. So as you give your take, I want you to set that line of what makes the greatest player, and this is how this person meets that criteria. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm interested to hear.
All right, take it away, Jay. Who's your GOAT? I feel like it's Larry Bird.
Bird is in the top 10. Bird is definitely in the GOAT conversation, no doubt about that. But in my lifetime, LeBron James is the best basketball player that I've ever seen. And I have never seen a guy come into the league with the amount of fanfare, the amount of hype, the amount of pressure, and actually deliver. And not just deliver over and over and over on what everybody said that he couldn't do. For him to fail the way he failed, and for him to bounce back and continue to deliver, the most complete basketball player that I've ever seen, elite on both sides of the basketball. The most important thing for me, when you're talking about a player being an all-time great, is longevity. I care about what you did, and I care about how long you did it. How long were you good? When you were awesome for 3 years? Were you awesome for 5 years? I don't think that we could have a conversation about you being in the GOAT conversation if you weren't awesome for, at minimum, a decade. We cannot have that conversation. And James has been awesome for well longer than a decade. We're talking about a guy at 6'8", 6'9", who is an elite passer, an elite playmaker, an elite scorer. I think he's one of the 5 best scorers that I've ever seen. Him on the defensive side of the basketball, he's elite. He's always been elite. We're talking about a guy who's versatile, who could defend 1 through 4, even in instances where he can even defend the 5. And everything that he's done from a basketball standpoint, he has improved every year. He improved as a scorer. He improved as a defender. He improved as a playmaker. He improved as a passer. He improved his IQ. All of this stuff has gotten better every year. And for him to still be playing at an elite level at age 37 is remarkable to me. He's the best that I've ever seen. And and by the way, Tone, that takes a lot for me to say that. And the reason why that takes a lot for me to say that is because I was around when Jordan had hair, and they used to call him Hair Jordan. So I remember that dude.
So I think great case for him. I'm going to make my case for who I think it is, but then maybe we can compare the two, because I always try to say, like, if you want to make a true who's your GOAT, it should be based on their own accomplishments versus comparing them to somebody else, because I'll get into that when we start into the comparison. So for me, it's Jordan. Why is it Jordan? Jordan came into a league that was center dominated, so much so that there was 2 centers picked over him in the draft. Even though Houston had a center in Sampson, they still took Olajuwon number 1. Now, Olajuwon was a special talent, right? Footwork, offense, defense, incredible player. Portland, your team there, Haley, take Sam Bowie. You've got a bad history of taking centers, by the way, number 2, but We'll talk about that another day. And they take that because what did people feel? They felt like, that's the centerpiece of an offense in those days. When he comes into the league, we have to understand how bad the team he came into was. The Bulls were getting less attendance than the indoor soccer team in Chicago.
That's nuts.
That's what we're dealing with. The indoor soccer team at Chicago Stadium, same stadium, was getting more fans than the Bulls. That's how bad this team was.
That's nuts.
So he comes into a league that is center dominated. And really, we're talking, even when you look at, Magic and Bird being the 2 stars by 1984 when he gets drafted, they both had what? Well, one had Kareem, maybe the greatest player to that point, right? And the best center to that point in league history. Bird had McHale and Parrish, who people look back on and say, oh, they weren't. No, in their day, those 2 guys were dominant in the post, right? They could do everything. Parrish, Chief, he was the man of like 12,000 post-up moves, right? McHale was considered a really great post-up player. So even those two guys had centers. Jordan comes onto a team that has nobody. He had Orlando Woolridge, who was scoring, but I don't think he even ran past half court when he was playing defense, didn't have a center. And he comes into the league and he's just lights out. Well, then he becomes, in a couple of years, he becomes the leading scorer, right? Don't forget, Jordan led the league in scoring, I believe, from 1987 to 98, with the only 2 years being the 2 years that he was retired, where he didn't lead the league in scoring. And what did they say about guys who led the league in scoring before him? George Gervin, I think Dominique won one, Bob McAdoo won one, the others, right? They also, the guy who leads the league in scoring can't win. So he comes into this league and he becomes the best scorer. I think Jordan's the greatest scorer of all time. Why is he the greatest scorer of all time? Well, because he averages the most points per game. He does it at around 50%, which is people want to say it's not efficient. 50% is pretty damn efficient. He also leads the league history in playoff scoring. So he's the best scorer. Can he pass? Yeah, he can pass. When he was asked to be a point guard, he averaged over 8 assists a game. 10 out of 11 games, he had a triple-double. Like, he could do it. System plays into it. So I look at a guy who was the greatest scorer of all time, 10 scoring championships, 5 MVPs. I'm going into accolades as well here. Then I look at the defensive side. I think he was a 9-time all-defensive player of the year. Led the league, had steals and blocks, I think 100 and 200 back-to-back seasons. Defensive player of the year. So I have a guy who was elite on offense for his entire career. Keep in mind, at 38, 39 years old, people want to knock him as a wizard. He still averaged 23, 6, and 5. That's nothing to, like, after 3 or 4 years off, that's still pretty impressive. So I got the best scorer of all time. I've got he's an elite defender for his entire career, no years off. He comes into the league and people want to, and it took him time to figure out how to win. He had to get the right teammates, and this is everybody, had to get the right coach, had to get the right system. But here's the thing with Jordan. If you look back, the Lakers had never beaten the Celtics. I think they were like 0-8 against the Celtics, right? Kareem Magic comes in. They don't get to play the Celtics in the first year. Now the Lakers win a championship. A few years later, they beat the Celtics. They have to get over that Celtic hump. Celtics were the team to beat. Well, then what do the Lakers do? They beat the Pistons in 6. The next year, granted, Magic gets hurt in game 2. The Pistons now get over their hump, which is the Lakers. They actually sweep them in that series, and they win back-to-back. Well, who was the team in the East when Jordan actually had a team to get over? It was the Pistons. He loses to them a couple times, figures out how to beat them. Boom, he gets over the hump. Once he gets over that hump in year 7, they win 3 in a row. And people want to say, oh, he quit, did whatever. Listen, I want to just...
He did quit, Tom. He did.
He didn't quit. Because quitting, if you look it up in the dictionary, has to do with failure. He wasn't a failure. He left on top because he's insane. I'll give you this. Jordan is insane when it comes to being competitive. Like, if he has one item and he's standing behind you in the grocery line and you don't let him go first because he only has one item, he's going to take it personally and, like, probably ram into your car in the parking lot. Like, he's got problems. So he's like, his dad dies. He goes and plays baseball. He comes back and three-peats again. So we have a guy who, once he figured out how to win, and people want to say he couldn't pass. Man, go watch some games. My man could pass. It's just he was asked to score. People are asked to do different things.
Yeah.
So when I look at the entirety of his career and his life, he's the greatest scorer of all time. He's an elite defender for his entire career. He's got all the accolades you could ever imagine. Like, he's literally has everything. Finals MVPs, 6 of them. Finals rings, 6 of them. 5 MVPs, 10 scoring titles. Defensive player of the year. He's got all the awards and trophies you could ever imagine. And then the most important one, like, if you want to talk stats, statistically, you can compare him to anyone. When you compare him to other shooting guards, he's top 5 in every category: points, assists, rebounds, field goal percentage, everything. Top 5 for his position, because each position has different things that they excel at. So I try to compare it to position. Then I look at the intangibles. Did he play long enough? So here's the interesting thing. For all those things I just mentioned, all those like 10 scoring titles, defensive player of the year, 6 finals MVPs, Jordan played 15 seasons in the NBA. And I'm not taking away these seasons, but I'm just want to put it into perspective. 15 seasons in the NBA. 2 seasons, he played less than 20 games. 18, his second year because he was hurt. 17, the year he came back from retirement. And then the 2 years with the Wizards, where he was 38, 39, 40. So his prime years were basically 11 years. And in those 11 years, he won 6 titles, 10 scoring championships, like at a defensive player of the year. Like he did so much in that 11 prime years, which is incredible to me. And the last thing I'll say is guy who could have said, nope, I'm the system. I want to score. I want to get all the stats. But he bought into a system, into the triangle offense with Phil Jackson and started to rely on others. And he was very coachable. He always got better. And the weakness, which is his 3-point shooting. So let me address that real quick. He shot less than 1 per game. So even if he shot 0%, it didn't affect his game. I don't care. And he did average 33%, which if you look at the league in those days, that's average. So at worst, you could say he was an average 3-point shooter. But I always say this. He went up against Magic in his first finals, and everyone said, well, Magic's the best passer of all time. Yeah, he just averaged 11.2 assists per game because he wanted to show him, oh, I can pass too. Then he went up against Clyde Drexler, and they said, well, you can't shoot threes. I think we know how he responded. You know, the famous shrug game, right? Like if he he could impose his will at any time.
Right.
So when I look at all those intangibles, the coachability, the fire, the drive, the competitiveness, all those things, I say that for me, there's no weakness in his game.
Right.
So that's why I have him number 1.
Now, when I look at Jordan, the last thing that I want to do, whenever you're making a case for somebody, the last thing that you want to do is throw shade. Not even throw shade. I take that back. The last thing that I'd want to do is make this other person look less than. No, I don't need to build my guy up. I don't need to throw dirt on you to build my guy up.
Exactly.
I don't need to do that, because essentially what that is, Tone, to me, that's basically me being the new guy, and I'm talking about the ex. Well, I don't need to talk about him. I don't need to talk about that dude to make myself look better.
Yeah. I feel it's also like this. Hey, I'm trying to get her, so I'm going to tell her how bad you are.
Right, I don't need to do that. There's no reason. Right, there's no reason for me to do that. So when I think about James, when he comes into the league with a Cleveland Cavaliers team that wins 15 games before he gets there, all right? So they're Houston. They're Oklahoma City when he gets there, very much like the Bulls, right? So they go 2 years, his first 2 seasons, where they missed the playoffs by 1 game, by the way. They missed the playoffs. And then his 3rd year, they make the playoffs, and then they actually win a playoff series. So now they go from winning a playoff series to they're in the NBA Finals in year 4. So the year before that, when they make the playoffs in year 3, where he's 31 a game and he finishes 2nd in the league in league MVP votes, right? Finishes 2nd in the league in MVP votes. And we're kind of having this conversation that this guy is going to be something serious. So then they moved to 2007, where he takes that team to the NBA Finals. And a lot of people will tell me that the road to the NBA Finals wasn't as difficult. Once again, Tony, you and I have had this conversation. You play who's in front of you. I don't care about all of that nonsense, right? Agreed. So what happens is the same thing that happened with the Bulls. And the reason why I say the same thing that happened with the Bulls, in 1986, Jordan goes into Boston Garden, and the 1985-86 Boston Celtics are considered at that time the best team that the NBA has ever seen.
Ever, yeah.
Michael Jordan goes in there and puts 49 and 63 on them. Jerry Krause has an aha moment. What is that aha moment? That moment is, there's my franchise player. I better go get this guy some players. And he does that. Not only does he do that, he does that to a great fashion. He builds a great team around him. Well, what was the Cleveland Cavaliers' aha moment? In 2007. So we take this team that wasn't even picked to go to the finals, because the Detroit Pistons had been in the Eastern Conference Championship at that point for 5 straight years. And James, almost by himself, dismantles that team and gets the Cavaliers to the finals. That's your aha moment, Cleveland. But instead, what do? We're just going to keep riding this thing. All right. So we're not going to do it. We're just going to keep riding this thing until the wheels fall off. Tell them the best example that I can give you about James, and what I left out was the most important thing. He's from there. So him being from Cleveland, that's even more compounded. So the best example I can give you, Tony, it's like you live in a neighborhood and the most beautiful girl in the world lives in your neighborhood and she's interested in you. but you don't know how to handle her. So you're just going to keep taking her to the movies. You're going to keep taking her to McDonald's. You're going to keep taking her for burgers, not realizing that, yo, you understand what you got here? You have no idea. So the Cleveland Cavaliers had no idea. They thought that they were just going to keep riding James. And this guy, not the team, but this guy, he's going to take us to the finals every year. Only except he was doing everything that he possibly could to get them there. And now the logic on him is, well, maybe he isn't that good. Even though he's averaging 40 a game in the Eastern Conference Championship. He's averaging 35 a game in the Eastern Conference Championship, and they're losing with his second best player being Mo Williams and his third best player being Delonte West. So then he realizes, because you and I both know this, home, what is your legacy going to be based on? It's going to be based on winning. You couldn't care less, Tone, how many points Carmelo Anthony scored a game. You couldn't care less. But I bet you if Carmelo Anthony been to the NBA Finals 6 times and won it 4, we'd be having a way different conversation about him. So he recognized that his legacy was going to be about winning, and you guys aren't serious about this. And I'm not going to waste away here. So he ends up going down to South Beach, and he does that. Now, he doesn't do it in the first year. He fails because it's a chemistry thing, and he fails. But then roles get established, and we start to get this thing figured out. And once they get this thing figured out, now he's rolling. Then he comes back to Cleveland, and he shows them what he learned. Because I'm not the same guy that left here 4 years ago. I'm a different guy. And now they're rolling. So we got a team in Miami that 4 straight years they're in the NBA Finals. Now we go to Cleveland, 4 straight years they're in the NBA Finals. Then we go to Los Angeles, where, once again, Tone, it took me a long time to come to this conclusion about him and Jordan, because I was a Jordan guy through and through. And by the time the 18-19 season came around, I was convinced that I had seen the best player that I had ever seen in my life. And that was I was on Christmas of 2019 when James ends up hurting his groin with a Laker team who this previous season were in 10th place. In a nightmare Western Conference, he has them 2.5 games out of first place. I'm like, this dude is the best that I've ever seen. I try to fight it, but I can't fight it anymore. We got a guy who was a 6-time All-League defender, which I hear a lot of people talking about. Well, Jordan was a 9-time All-League defender, which Michael Jordan was phenomenal on the defensive end. Tone, did you know that in the 15-16 season, James had the highest defensive rating of his career in the 15-16 season? He didn't make the All-League defensive team. He had a higher plus minus. He had a higher defensive win share. I mean, he had the same defensive win share, in the 15-16 season. Did you know in the 16-17 season, so he finished 5th in Defensive Player of the Year? He's never in the history of his career finished in the top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year and not made the All-League defensive team. That has never happened. So that's 8 right there. And then you go to 2018, then you go to 2019, 2020, which he had a higher defensive rating. Not only did he have a higher defensive rating, he had a higher plus minus and the same almost defensive win share as he had in 10-11 when he made when he was a first-team All-League defender. That's 9 right there. So that gets a little tricky when we start to add stuff like that up. So I got an elite All-League defender. I got a 4-time NBA MVP, right? I got a guy who there's a generation of kids, Tone, who don't know anything else but LeBron James being in the NBA Finals. Just like they don't know anything else. Just like they don't know anything else but Tom Brady being in the Super Bowl. There's a generation of kids who don't know anything else but that. So to do that for that long, I mean, we're talking about a guy who averaged 25 a game or more for 18 straight years. That is incredible to be able to do something like that. And he's not by far, I'm never going to say by far, but he is the best basketball player that I have ever seen.
When it comes to longevity, and specifically peak longevity, I will say by far he is the best. Mm-hmm. There's no one who's played at his level for this long. It's unparalleled. It's phenomenal. And that's why, let's be honest, that's why this is even a debate. It's because they're so close. So like when I look at, if I look at basic numbers, right? So let's get into the comparison a little bit, right? When I look at basic numbers, so I look at offense. So Jordan scores more points per game.
Yep.
Offense only, because I'm going to get killed if I don't say this. Offense only. Jordan scores more points per game, more offensive rebounds per game, less turnovers per game, higher free throw shooting percentage. LeBron James, more assists per game, higher field goal shooting percentage, higher 3-point shooting percentage.
Mhm.
Like it's so close. Like in my categories, it's 4-3 by a hair.
Right.
When I look at advanced stats, so I like advanced stats just as for context, but I
Right.
want to say, so when you look at the big ones, and let me go through this because I want to show you why it's so close and why we will forever probably have this debate.
Mhm.
So PER, win share per 48,
Mhm.
offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus,
Mhm.
VORP, and true shooting percentage. Okay, those are kind of the 5-6 kind of most commonly used ones.
Yep.
So of those 5, Jordan leads 5 out of 6. So he leads PER, win share, blocks plus minus, offense, defense, and VORP. LeBron James, true shooting percentage. But because this is for the advanced stat guys who want to say, oh, see, Jordan leads 5 out of 6. He's the greatest. It's easy. It's not that easy. PER is 27.9 to 27.4.
It's the same thing.
Right? Win share 0.25 to 0.23.
It's the same thing.
Box plus minus 7.2 to 7.1 offensive.
It's the same thing.
Defense.
Yeah, it's so close.
Defensive box plus minus 2.0 to 1.8.
Same thing.
VORP 7.74 to 7.49.
It's the
Like
same
it
thing.
is so close. Even the
Same
true
thing.
shooting percentage is 56.8 to 58.8. And that's because, let's be honest, I hate true shooting percentage. And here's why, if I may, just on a quick sidebar.
It's the dumb thing.
If you shoot 1 of 1 from 3, your true shooting percentage is 150%.
Which
You
is
can't
not.
shoot 150%.
Okay.
It's impossible. So anyways, so when I
Well,
look
Fluent, let me interrupt you really quickly.
okay, good, because I was about to go on a
No, I
rant.
know. But I'm just wondering. Okay, so you think Jordan's a GOAT? Respect that. LeBron's still playing. Okay, so we can't rule out. He still has years to go, I'm guessing. So, in your opinion, what is it going to take, if anything, if it's possible? What would it take
Can
for
LeBron overpass?
Yes.
Yeah, he can.
Yes.
Because
Okay,
he's at this point. So first of all, please don't ever tell me total stats, because I might slap you upside the head. And here's why. Total numbers, okay? John Stockton leads Magic Johnson in all but one category, rebounds. And no one would ever say Stockton is better than Magic. In total points, I believe Karl Malone leads. I think it's Tim Duncan or something. There's a couple other scenarios, but the Magic versus Stockton's the biggest one for me. However, for LeBron's peak longevity, I don't think I'm with Jay on this one. I don't know that he's going to win another championship, but I think he's already got all the accolades, all that stuff that he needs. If he goes another 2-3 years and like becomes the number 1 scorer all time, like he keeps, putting up 27, 7 and 7 for like 2 more years. The fact that a guy played, and he's now played in the league longer than anybody else. So if he does that for 21, 22 years, it's going to be really, really hard to like ignore the peak longevity. And I think that's what probably, like, if he stops today, I still got Jordan a hair ahead of, like, I would be okay if you said 1A, 1B. I'm okay with Jay saying it's 1-2. Like, I don't care. It's those 2 guys, 1-2 in any order. So I just have him a hair over LeBron. I think if he still does it for another year or 2, heaven forbid, and I'd love this if it happened, if he wins another chip with my Lakers, my opinion might change.
Right.
But for sure, if he goes another year or 2 and doesn't have a huge drop off, like doesn't do like a Kareem and average 10 points a game, you're just going to look at his peak longevity and say, like, you can't argue that. Now, some of that is genetics. Some of that is like God just came down and said, you're going to be a basketball player. But yeah, I think that's what would need to happen, I think, for me. But I look at, if you play 22 years, it's hard to compare a 22-year peak versus for me, an 11-year peak.
Because I did it double.
Like, you're like double.
I did it double the time that you did. And with that also being said, Tony, you and I have had this conversation. There's really nothing to sway me. The stuff that he's doing now and the stuff that he will do in the future, all it's doing for me is adding to the legacy. So if he passes Jabbar and he ends up becoming in the 40,000 point, 10,000 rebound, 10,000 assist club, I mean, that's not something that I think I'm going to see again in my lifetime, right? If he ends up he's already the all-time leading scorer in playoff history. He's in the top 5 all-time in assists in playoff history. He's in the top 10 all time in rebounds in playoff history. He's in the top 10 in steals all time. So these things, all they do is just add to the legacy of who he already is. I've already got my mind made up about who he already is. Now, I think that he's done winning NBA championships, and that's not a knock on him like, James, you just suck. No, I just think that time has come and gone. But with that being said, if he were to do that, if he gets to 5, that's not going to go, oh, he's definitely it now. No, that's just going to add to the legacy.
It's not about the ring for me. It's more about, it's because when I look at LeBron's career, and this is why when I'm comparing the two, which I like to have each of them as their own, right? But when I compare the two, and why you'll see my TikTok is always kind of correcting people, is that I just want people to be objective to this. Like LeBron, I'm going to tell you his negative, and then I'm going to tell you why I hold him in such high regard. And Jay knows this, and not everybody in the chat might know this. I do not rank active players. I don't care if they played 30 years. If you're an active player, you're not in my top all-time list.
I had to twist his arm. I had to twist his arm to get with James. I had to twist his arm to get with James.
I want because I always use Dwight Howard as the example. Watch Dwight Howard the first 5 years. Oh my God, he's one of the greatest centers of all time. Now watch him at the end of the career. Is anyone saying that anymore?
No.
Not anymore. So I want to wait till it's done. That being said, I see LeBron come in and don't give me these excuses about he was young and his team sucked. Right? Jordan, by the way, never got swept in a 7-game series. But anyways, that's just for someone in the chat. So he comes into the league, right? In 07. I get that he's 4th year, 22 years old. Everyone wants to say his team stunk. Well, his team was good enough to get to the final, right? Gibson did play a role in them beating Detroit, but he plays very poorly, right? He shoots like 30-something% from the field, 20% from 3, 69% from the free throw line. As a favorite, right? One of the things people always say is, well, Jordan, he was always the favorite when he won. Well, LeBron had the Cavs as the number 1 seed in the NBA 2 years back to back. The number 1 seed in the NBA didn't even make the final. In 2011, he's as a stinker. Whatever excuse you want to make, he stunk. He was the 3rd best player on the Heat. So those are the knocks that people want to say against LeBron. And they're fair, they're legit, and they're true. Here's the cool thing about LeBron. He doesn't put his head down and mope. He goes out and gets better, right? In 27, he learned, I'm not very good in the post. What did he do? He hired Olajuwon to help him with his footwork and became better in the post, right? In 2011, he's like, I'm not a very good second fiddle. I need to lead the team. And what does he do? He comes back and play. Like he understands where his weaknesses were and he makes them strengths. Like he wasn't a great 3-point shooter. Go back and look. Now, he's a really good 3-point shooter. Like he gets better every year. And that's like just a testament to his drive. So when people say the fire, the drive, the Mamba mentality, whatever, oh, he has it. Trust me, he has it. You might not like the way he does it. You might not like the way that he's like, I'm the system versus playing in a system. But it's hard to argue how great this guy is, and that every time he saw a weakness in his game, he went and worked on it and got better, right? Like, not a fair example, but you look at Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons can't shoot. And Ben Simmons said, so what? I can't shoot. Right? Whereas LeBron was like, oh, I can't do something? Well, watch this. Now I can. And that's the difference between an elite kind of great player and someone else. So,
yeah.
Well, and he also did it in an era where social media was watching his every move in a way that had never been done before, which is insane. I mean, he's held himself in such high regard and carried himself so well and gives so much outside of, the court as well as on the court. So I just have a lot of respect for him. I have so much respect for both of them. But for me, I grew up seeing LeBron, not MJ. I didn't get to see him live. So I can go back and watch highlights as much as I want. And they are mesmerizing, but they aren't,
Listen, I grew up hating Jordan because I was a Laker fan. Magic is the one that got me into basketball. And I saw this guy, and even when my Lakers were winning chips, and yes, I'm going to say Lakers, my Lakers. I don't care if people think I'm biased. They're my damn Lakers. I've been a fan for 40 years. I'm allowed to call them my Lakers. I saw this guy in Chicago, and I'm like, he's going to be a problem, right? Like he's going to, and then he just kind of took over, and I was like, damn him, just damn him. But you couldn't not watch. Like it was must see, like TV. Like you had to watch him play, and.
That's how I felt about LeBron.
Exactly. And that's why typically younger people will say, like, if I look at my grandfather, he's going to say, Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain,
Yeah, exactly.
My older brother's going to
Mine
still say
too.
Magic or Bird. I'm going to say Jordan. Younger people are going to say LeBron. And guess what? In 10 years from now, 15 years from now, people are going to say it's Tatum or Luka or whoever it happens to be. That's just the way it works. But man, you're not wrong. I do want to put this out there. You're not wrong. When people say it's Jordan by a mile, no, it's not. It's LeBron by a mile. No, it's not.
I can't have conversations with those people, Tone. Whenever I hear it's not a conversation, I'm done. You will not get a word out of me. Whenever you say to me, yo, it's Jordan by this or it's LeBron by this, I'm not even having a conversation with you. Nope, I will not even.
And let me say this. This is for Ron from Player's Choice, LaRon for PC Gridiron as well. This is for him because he has Kareem as his GOAT. Mm-hmm. And let me just tell you this. I love LeBron and Jordan, but if you include high school and college, it is Kareem. It is Kareem.
Well, Tone, you and I have had this conversation before that if your logic is James, Jordan, Jabbar, if it's Jabbar, Jordan, James, if it's Jordan, James, Jabbar, I got no problem with that. I take no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah, and just for those in the chat that maybe didn't get to see, I only saw the tail end of Kareem. But let me just throw this out there so you understand. He played 3 years of varsity ball in high school, 3 championships, and he's the leading guy for his high school. He goes to UCLA, plays 3 seasons. They go 30-0, 29-1, 29-1, 3 NCAA championships. He's averaging 25 and 15. They have to ban dunking because he's scoring on everybody so easily. Then he comes into the NBA and he
whoa, Tone, rewind. Don't just stop right there. Yeah, you absolutely missed. Don't just talk about my team being great. Don't leave out that I am the best player in the country too.
Oh yeah. I thought that was a given. Sorry.
No, I'm the best player. Yes. I was the MVP of the NCAA tournament all 3 years.
All 3 years.
Don't leave that part out.
Yes, 100%. Thank you.
Keep going.
So high school unmatched, college unmatched. Then he comes into the NBA and just wins 6 MVPs, goes 6 and 10 in the finals. So he goes to the finals 10 times, wins 6 of them, 6 MVPs. He's a finals MVP. He's the all-time leading scorer of all time, has a shot that no one can stop. So when you look at it all, he's basically been the best basketball player since he was 15 years old till the day he retired. That's insane. That's insane. So I want to throw that out there too. So if you're going beyond NBA, Kareem might be he might be the easiest choice if you're looking outside of just NBA.
And mind you, real quick, Haley, I got this one shot. Stop this and you stop me. He played 20 years in the NBA. I just want to put that out there. I got this one shot that I do. Stop this offensively and you stop me. He played 20 years and he scored the most points of anybody in NBA history. That's all I'm gonna say.
So I don't think that we solved anything here, mind you, but I think it's the people who feel it's LeBron will forever feel like it's LeBron. The people who feel it's Jordan, I think will forever be that it's Jordan. But they both, let's just put it this way, they both have a legit shot because you can make a listen. I seem one-sided on certain platforms, and I always tell people I seem like I'm like Jordan by a mile, but it's because I get sent 1,000 stupid posts about LeBron and I'm just like, that's just not true. And I get 1 or 2 about Jordan, and I've done here's a Jordan flaw. I've done Jordan, you can't, they're there, go look for them, they're there,
right?
It's so close. When people say it's not close, and for me, like I say, I go back to he didn't have a major flaw in his game that you could point to and say, oh, you could take advantage of this, and he always showed up. And so that's why I say the hair differences. Although LeBron got better, he did have a minor flaw in his minor flaw in his game, and a couple of times, not a lot, once or twice, he didn't show up. That's kind of the tiebreaker for me. I would feel better if he had a winning record in the finals too. I know that's a team thing, but I would if he was 6-4, right? Like if he was 6-4, I'd feel a lot better. I know.
And not only is it the team thing, when I hear that 6-0 logic, the reason why that bothers me is because even if that's true, that only makes you better than him. That doesn't make you the best.
It doesn't make you better than Russell.
No, it doesn't.
Havlicek was 8-0.
Right. That doesn't make you better.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't make you better than them. Well, he's got 6 NBA finals and he's got 6 finals MVPs. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but the finals MVP wasn't given out till 1969. That was Russell's last season. Right. I don't know. They went to the NBA Finals 8 straight years. I'm 100% confident that
Yeah, I'm
Russell
pretty
would've
sure
won
he
it.
wins 8 of those. Yeah, for sure.
Or at least 6 of them.
At least
right?
6, yeah.
At least 6 of them. So I mean that's bad logic right there. Whenever I listen.
Well, this
to
is
that.
this is
I'm
why I
good on
tell
that.
people. This is why I tell people like they always want to like no one brings up Elgin Baylor, and they say, well, because he never won a chip. I'm like, yeah, but if you want to give credit to getting to the final, he went 8 times
in a row. By the way,
he went 8 times in a row.
In a
like,
row.
That's pretty. Like you got it. Like you're the second best team in the world. Like I get it. You couldn't get over the hump, but man, you know, like that's with all his statistics and everything Elgin Baylor did to make it 8 times. Like I'm not saying he's top 5, but I'm saying like you know, give him some love.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, honestly, people are saying in the chat, easily the most civilized and informed MJ versus LeBron debate ever. Good stuff. So I think we kept it very respectful. And I, you know, this is something that's going to continue to come up. 100%. But I just think I learned a lot. I think everybody learned a lot. And, you know, the people that are going to stay stuck in their ways without having that open mindset that we talked about earlier, when we first started the pod, that is what it is. But I mean, we're not here to argue. We're here to like love, you know, that's something we all share, and we want to just talk about what we love, the sport we love. And so I think it was a great discussion, but I think we have to wrap it up here pretty soon. But Tone, do you want to give us maybe a little recap of or a little update on maybe what we're going to cover Thursday, what people can look forward to, any topic discussions, or if you guys want to throw it in the chat too, what you guys want to.
I would say that's why we have the chat. So I would say that we're going to talk more about what's happening in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and then you guys tell us, what do you want to hear on Thursday? We can talk basketball, we can talk football, we can talk like honestly, we could talk life. We like literally, you guys put into the chat what you guys want to hear, and we'll put it on the doc. Like we're open.
Yes, we are.
Maybe you know what, Haley? If you watch the chat, but I'm gonna leave it up to you. You can pick the topics for Thursday.
Well,
I'm gonna put the pressure on you.
By Thursday, you know, I think we'll have a little bit more understanding of where the playoffs are, so that'll be a good discussion. I think another good discussion would be players. Well, they're under 25 now. We have the good old debate of Devin, Luka, Tatum, but now I think we can go even deeper into that, because now we've seen them all in the playoffs at one time, which is really exciting, because I don't know if that's been done before. Maybe it has, but you know, to get this far in the playoffs. So I think that would be a good discussion as well. So
all right. I like that.
you guys let us know in the chat.
I do too.
We'll discuss it.
Yeah,
but it was a good pod today. So
did we convince you? Did we convince you? I know you're a LeBron girl, right? Because you grew up watching him.
Well,
did you get swayed at all?
I learned a lot. You know, I've done my own research on this because, again, I like try to keep an open mind. But I didn't see him. I didn't get that same like vibe of like, oh, I know what it was like during the most intense moments. Like it's just not the same. But I think overall, I mean, when it comes to stats, I think Jordan is the GOAT. He is the greatest player when it comes to those things. But you know, like Jay said, when it comes to like that energy that I've personally seen, and just that the length of time that he's played, it's insane. Like we say, oh, he's 37, blah, and then on to the next game. He's 37. Like that is insane. And he's still playing and averaging similar numbers that he's averaged his whole career. So it's wild. But you know, my mind will continue to stay open, and I think we can discuss it more when he does wrap up his career. But I think we have a little ways to go before that happens. So
I think so too.
I'm sure we're gonna have this conversation again. Well, I think we can all agree on this. Well, one, I'll point out Jordan, 9 scoring titles and first All NBA team, only player to do that 9 times. But I'll go this: LeBron, greatest peak longevity ever. Jordan, best shoe salesman ever.
It's not even close. It's not close. It's not close, Tom. It's not close. I got a closet full of J's.
Everybody does.
I got a closet full of J's. So it's not close. It's not even close. So
all right. Until Thursday, Jay.
Take it light, but take it.
Peace.